The barrel of the rifle pressed against Declan Morrison's shoulder as he aimed at the fleeing rabbit, but the soft gasp from inside his covered wagon made him freeze mid-breath. Someone was hiding in his wagon. He lowered the weapon slowly, his heart hammering as he considered his options. The year was 1878, and in these parts of Utah Territory near Moab, a man learned to be cautious about surprises. Bandits and desperados made their living preying on lone travelers, and Declan had worked too hard to let some thief make off with his supplies. He approached the wagon with measured steps, his boots crunching against the dried grass. The canvas sides billowed slightly in the afternoon breeze, and he could see the shadow of movement inside. Declan kept his rifle ready but not raised, his finger off the trigger. Whatever was in there, he would handle it smart rather than rash. "Come on out," he called, his voice steady. "I know you are in there." Silence answered him, broken only by the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. The sun beat down mercilessly on his neck, and sweat trickled down his spine beneath his worn cotton shirt. "I said come out. I would rather not have to drag you out myself." A moment passed, then another. Finally, the canvas flap at the back of the wagon shifted and a hand emerged. A small, delicate hand that belonged to a woman. Declan lowered his rifle completely, watching as she climbed out awkwardly, her movements hindered by what appeared to be several layers of dusty skirts. She was young, probably no more than 22 or 23, with auburn hair that had come loose from its pins and now hung in tangled waves around her face. Her green eyes were wide with fear, and she held her hands up in a gesture of surrender. Dirt smudged her cheek, and her dress, once probably a fine dove gray traveling costume, was torn at the hem and stained with dust and what looked like dried blood. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please do not send me back." Declan studied her carefully, noting the way she trembled, the dark circles under her eyes, the raw desperation in her face. This was not some common thief or con artist. This was a woman running from something and running hard. "Who are you?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. "My name is Sarah," she said, then hesitated. "Sarah Bennett." "Well, Sarah Bennett, you want to tell me what you are doing hiding in my wagon, and who you are running from?" Her eyes darted past him, scanning the horizon as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. "There are men. 3 of them. They have been following me for 4 days now. I saw your wagon this morning before dawn, and I just needed somewhere to hide, just for a little while. I did not mean any harm. What do these men want with you?" Sarah's face paled, and she wrapped her arms around herself despite the heat. "My uncle. He wants me dead." The words hung in the air between them, stark and terrible. Declan had heard plenty of wild stories in his 30 years, but something about the way she said it, the absolute certainty and fear in her voice, made him believe her. "That is quite a claim," he said carefully. "Why would your own kin want you dead? My father died 3 months ago. He owned a ranch, a good one, just outside of Green River. In his will, he left everything to me, but the law says I cannot claim it until I marry or turn 25. Until then, my Uncle Jonas is the executor. If I die before I can claim the inheritance, everything goes to him." "So he decided to hurry things along," Declan finished grimly. Sarah nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "He sent men to the house one night. They set fire to the servants' quarters. I heard the screams and I ran. I have been running ever since. They keep finding me no matter where I go." Declan glanced at his wagon, then back at the woman standing before him. Every instinct told him to believe her, but he had learned the hard way that instincts could be wrong. Still, if she was lying, she was the best liar he had ever met, and the blood on her dress looked real enough. "How old are you?" he asked. 22. "I will be 23 in December, And these men, how far behind you do you reckon they are? I do not know. I lost them yesterday afternoon in a creek bed, but they always find me again. Always." Her voice broke on the last word, and she pressed a hand to her mouth as if to hold back a sob. Declan made his decision. Right or wrong, he could not just leave her here, and he certainly could not hand her over to men who might kill her. His mother had raised him better than that, even if she had been gone these past 10 years. "Get back in the wagon," he said. Sarah's eyes widened. "What? Get back in the wagon. We need to move, and we need to move now. If those men are as persistent as you say, we do not want to be here when they show up. You are helping me." The disbelief in her voice cut him deeper than he cared to admit. What kind of world was it where a woman was surprised that someone would help her? "I am helping you. Now come on before I change my mind." She scrambled back into the wagon, and Declan secured the canvas flap before moving to the front. His 2 horses, steady, reliable animals named Buck and Sally, waited patiently in their traces. He climbed up onto the bench seat and took the reins, clicking his tongue to get them moving. As they rolled forward, Declan's mind raced. He had been heading to Moab to sell the furniture he had spent the last 3 months crafting. He was a carpenter by trade, and a decent one. The tables, chairs, and cabinets in the back of his wagon, now sharing space with a fugitive woman, represented his entire income for the season. But none of that would matter if Sarah's pursuers caught up with them. The terrain around them was harsh and beautiful in equal measure. Red rock formations jutted up from the earth like the bones of some ancient giant, and the Colorado River ran somewhere to the east, its presence marked by the thin line of green vegetation that followed its course. The sun was starting its descent toward the western horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. They traveled for an hour in silence before Sarah's voice drifted forward from the wagon. "Why are you helping me? You do not even know me." "Reckon that is true," Declan called back. "But you needed help and I was here. Does not need to be more complicated than that. Most men would have turned me in. My uncle is offering a reward." Declan felt a flash of anger at that. Of course the bastard was. Make it look like she was a criminal, get others to do his dirty work. "How much?" $500. He whistled low. That was a fortune, enough to buy land, build a house, start a real life. For a moment, just a moment, he let himself imagine what he could do with that kind of money. Then he shook his head, disgusted with himself for even considering it. "Well, I reckon I will just have to live without it," he said. Silence fell again, and Declan focused on the trail ahead. He knew this country fairly well, had traveled through it several times over the past few years. There was a place, maybe 2 hours ahead if they kept a good pace, where a canyon cut deep into the rock. They could camp there for the night, hidden from view, and decide what to do come morning. The sun was touching the horizon when Declan spotted the riders. 3 of them, just as Sarah had said, dark silhouettes against the burning sky. They were perhaps a mile behind, but closing fast. His hands tightened on the reins. "Sarah," he called, keeping his voice level. "Those men behind us, they yours?" He heard her scramble to the back of the wagon, heard her sharp intake of breath. "Yes. Oh God, yes, that is them." Declan snapped the reins, urging Buck and Sally to a faster pace. The wagon lurched forward, and he heard Sarah cry out as she was thrown back. The horses could not maintain a full gallop pulling the heavy wagon, but they could manage a decent clip for a while. The canyon was still a good distance ahead, and the riders were gaining. Declan could see them more clearly now, could make out the gleam of rifles in their hands. His own rifle lay beside him on the bench, loaded and ready, but he was 1 man against 3. Not impossible odds, but not good ones either. "Hold on tight," he shouted to Sarah and drove the horses harder. The wagon bounced and rattled over the rough ground, and Declan had to fight to keep it upright. He could hear his carefully crafted furniture sliding and bumping in the back, and he winced at every crash. But that did not matter now. All that mattered was getting Sarah to safety. A rifle shot cracked through the air and Declan ducked instinctively. The bullet went wide, but it was a warning of what was coming. They were still out of accurate range, but that would not last long. The canyon loomed ahead, its mouth a dark slash in the rocks. Declan aimed for it, praying the trail was still passable. He had come through here last year, but flash floods could change the landscape overnight in this country. Another shot rang out, closer this time. Buck whinnied in fear, and Declan had to use all his strength to keep the horses steady. They plunged into the canyon, and suddenly the world narrowed to steep rock walls on either side and a strip of darkening sky above. The trail twisted and turned, following the path ancient water had carved through the stone. Declan had to slow down or risk overturning the wagon, but at least the canyon made it harder for the riders to get a clear shot. He could hear the thunder of hooves behind them, echoing off the walls. The canyon opened up into a wider space, almost a natural amphitheater. Declan knew what lay beyond was a narrow choke point, barely wide enough for the wagon. If he could get through there, the riders would have to come through single file, unable to use their numbers to advantage. He pushed the horses forward, and they entered the narrow passage. Rock scraped against both sides of the wagon, and for a horrible moment, Declan thought they were stuck. Then, with a shriek of wood on stone, they burst through into another open space. Declan pulled the horses to a halt and grabbed his rifle. "Sarah, stay down and stay quiet," he ordered, jumping from the wagon. He positioned himself behind a boulder that gave him a view of the passage they had just come through. The riders would have to come through there, and when they did, he would be ready. The first rider appeared, hunched low over his horse's neck. Declan aimed carefully and fired. The shot echoed like thunder in the confined space, and the rider jerked back, clutching his shoulder. His horse reared and the man tumbled to the ground. The other two riders pulled back, disappearing from view. Declan reloaded quickly, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. He had been in tight spots before, had fought in a few range wars back in his younger days. He knew how to keep his head. "Morrison," a voice called out, echoing off the canyon walls. "That is your name, is it not? Declan Morrison." Declan said nothing, just kept his rifle trained on the passage. "We do not want trouble with you," the voice continued. "We are just here for the girl. She is a thief and a murderer. There is a warrant out for her arrest. You help us bring her in, and we will split that reward with you. That is near $200 for a few minutes' work." "If there is a warrant, show it to me," Declan called back. "Bring it through that passage nice and slow, and I will take a look." Laughter answered him, harsh and mocking. "We do not have time for games, Morrison. Send the girl out or we will come in and take her. You cannot win this fight." "Maybe not," Declan agreed, "but I can sure as hell make you pay for it. Already dropped one of your friends." "Want to see if I can make it 2 out of 3? Silence fell, heavy and tense. Declan waited, barely breathing, his finger resting lightly on the trigger. Minutes passed, stretching out until he could not tell if it had been 5 minutes or 30. Then he heard it. The sound of horses moving away, their hoofbeats gradually fading. He stayed in position until he could not hear them anymore, until the only sounds were the wind whistling through the canyon and the nervous stamping of his own horses. Slowly, carefully, he stood up and walked to the narrow passage. The wounded man was gone, leaving only a dark stain on the ground. They had retreated, taking their injured companion with them. But Declan knew this was not over. Men like that did not give up easily, especially not with $500 on the line. He returned to the wagon and found Sarah peering out from the back, her face white as chalk. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "For now, but they will be back, probably with more men. We bought ourselves some time, but not much." Sarah climbed out of the wagon, her legs shaking so badly she nearly fell. Declan caught her arm, steadying her, and felt the fine tremors running through her body. She looked up at him, and in the fading light, her eyes were dark pools of fear and something else. Gratitude, maybe, or hope. "You shot one of them," she said. "You could have been killed. Could say the same for you, running across Utah territory with killers on your tail." A ghost of a smile touched her lips, there and gone in an instant. "I did not have much choice." "Neither did I," Declan said softly, and realized he meant it. From the moment he had seen her climb out of his wagon, frightened and desperate, his choice had been made. He could no more have abandoned her than he could have stopped breathing. They made camp in the small clearing, though Declan insisted they have no fire. The risk of being spotted was too great. Instead, they ate cold beans and hardtack from his supplies, washing it down with water from his canteen. Sarah ate mechanically, as if she could not taste the food, and Declan did not blame her. After what she had been through, it was a wonder she could eat at all. "Tell me about your father," Declan said after they had finished eating. "What kind of man was he?" Sarah's face softened in the darkness. "He was a good man. Stubborn as a mule, my mother used to say, but good. He came out here 20 years ago with nothing but a dream and a wagon. Built that ranch from scratch, survived droughts and harsh winters and all manner of troubles. He taught me everything he knew. How to read the weather, how to judge good livestock, how to keep the books and manage the hands. Sounds like he was grooming you to take over." "He was. My mother died when I was 15, and after that, it was just the two of us. He used to say I had more sense in my little finger than Jonah's had in his whole body. My uncle always resented that. He thought the ranch should be his as the oldest male relative." "What happened to your father?" Sarah's voice went flat. "The doctor said it was a heart attack." "But my father was strong as an ox. He could work from dawn till dusk and never show a sign of slowing. I think Jonah's poisoned him, but I can never prove it." Declan absorbed this, fitting the pieces together. "So he killed your father or had him killed. Then he tried to kill you." "This uncle of yours, he is one ruthless son of a gun." "He is a devil," Sarah said simply. "A devil in a gentleman's clothes." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the canyon. Somewhere an owl called and the horses shifted in their traces, blowing softly through their nostrils. "What will you do?" Declan asked finally. "Even if we shake these men, your uncle will just send more." "I know. I have thought about it constantly. I need to get to Salt Lake City. I have a friend there, a lawyer who worked with my father. If I can reach him, he might be able to help me, file some kind of injunction, or maybe even get the authorities to investigate my uncle. Salt Lake City is a long way from here. More than a week's journey, and that is if everything goes smooth. I know, but it is the only chance I have." She turned to face him, and even in the darkness he could feel the intensity of her gaze. "I am not asking you to take me there. You have already done more than I had any right to expect. If you can get me to Moab, I can try to find another way." Declan thought about that, thought about dropping her off in Moab and washing his hands of the whole affair. It would be the smart thing, the safe thing. He could sell his furniture, take his money, and head back to his little cabin in the hills. Life could go on as it always had. But even as he thought it, he knew he would not do it. Could not do it. Sarah needed help, real help, and he was in a position to give it. More than that, something in him responded to her in a way he had not felt in years. She was brave and scared in equal measure, tough enough to survive 4 days on the run, but vulnerable enough to admit she needed help. And when she looked at him, he did not see the rough-edged carpenter who lived alone in the mountains. He saw a man who could be a hero, at least for a little while. "I will take you to Salt Lake City," he said. Sarah drew in a sharp breath. "Declan, you do not have to do that. Those men, they will not stop. You saw what they are willing to do." "I saw. And I am still saying I will take you, but we do it smart. We do not go straight north. That is what they will expect. We head west first, maybe even swing south for a bit, make them work to find us. Then we cut north and make for Salt Lake City as fast as we can. That will take even longer, and you have your furniture to sell. Furniture can wait. Your life cannot." She stared at him for a long moment, and then, to his surprise, she started to cry. Not loud, dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that slipped down her cheeks and dripped off her chin. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Declan shifted uncomfortably. He had never been good with crying women. His wife, back before she had left him for a fancy man from Denver, used to accuse him of being emotionally stunted. Maybe she had been right. But he could not just sit there and watch Sarah cry. He moved closer and awkwardly patted her shoulder. "Hey now, it is going to be all right." "I am sorry," she managed between sobs. "I am not usually like this. It has just been so long since anyone was kind to me, since anyone helped me without wanting something in return." "I do not want anything," Declan said firmly, "except maybe for you to stop crying. You are making me feel like a heel." That surprised a laugh out of her, wet and choked but genuine. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing dirt across her face. "You are a good man, Declan Morrison." "I am just a man," he replied. "Now come on, we both need sleep. Tomorrow we start the long ride to Salt Lake City, and I have a feeling it is going to be one hell of a journey." They arranged their bedrolls on opposite sides of the wagon. Declan gave Sarah his spare blanket since she had nothing but the clothes on her back, and he wrapped himself in his coat. The night was cool, and he could hear Sarah shifting restlessly, unable to find comfort on the hard ground. "Declan," her voice drifted through the darkness. "Yeah, thank you for everything. Go to sleep, Sarah." He heard her soft laugh, and then silence fell. Declan lay awake for a long time, staring up at the stars visible through the slice of sky above the canyon walls. He had made his choice, and now he would have to live with the consequences. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Declan woke before Sarah and took stock of their situation. The wounded man from yesterday had left a visible blood trail leading back through the narrow passage, but there were no fresh tracks. Their pursuers had not returned during the night, which meant they were likely regrouping or looking for another way around. Sarah emerged from her blankets looking haggard, with dark circles under her eyes and lines of worry etched around her mouth. She helped Declan hitch up the horses without being asked, moving with the confident efficiency of someone who had spent time around livestock. "You really do know your way around a ranch," he observed as she checked Buck's harness with practiced hands. "My father made sure of it. He said a woman who owned land needed to know it inside and out, better than any man who worked for her." Her voice carried a note of pride mixed with pain. They ate a quick breakfast of dried beef and stale biscuits, then headed out. Declan chose a route that took them west, away from Moab and away from the main trails. The going was rougher, and he had to navigate carefully to keep the wagon from getting stuck or damaged, but it was worth it for the added security. As they traveled, Sarah told him more about her life. She had been educated by a governess, unusual for a ranch girl, and could read and write better than most men Declan knew. Her father had encouraged her learning, had even sent away for books from back east. She loved poetry, she admitted with a shy smile, especially Whitman and Dickinson. My father thought poetry was foolish, she said, but he bought me the books anyway. He said a person should have something that made them happy, even if it did not make a lick of sense to anyone else. Declan found himself sharing things too. About his childhood in Missouri, about coming west after his parents died, about the wife who had left him 5 years ago because she could not stand the isolation and the hard work. He had thought he was over it, but talking to Sarah, he realized the wound still ached like an old injury before rain. She did not deserve you, Sarah said when he finished. Any woman who would leave a good man because life got hard is not worth having. Maybe, or maybe I was not enough for her. That is her failing, not yours. The certainty in her voice warmed something inside him that had been cold for a long time. They rode in companionable silence after that, the landscape rolling past in shades of red and gold and brown. By mid-afternoon, they reached a small trading post nestled in a valley between two mesas. It was barely more than a shack, but the owner, a grizzled old man named Caleb who knew Declan from previous trips, had supplies they needed. Morrison, Caleb greeted him, squinting in the bright sunlight. Did not expect to see you out this way. Thought you would be in Moab by now. Change of plans, Declan said carefully. Need to stock up on some supplies, beans, flour, coffee if you have it, and ammunition. Caleb's roomy eyes slid to Sarah, who had stayed on the wagon bench. That's so, expecting trouble, just being careful. The old man nodded slowly. Good policy. Had some men through here yesterday, asking questions. Said they were looking for a woman, red-headed girl who stole from her employer, offering a reward. Declan's hand moved instinctively closer to the rifle at his side. That right. What did you tell them? Told them I had not seen hide nor hair of any woman. This is man's country out here. Women stick to the towns. Caleb's gaze met Declan's, and understanding passed between them. You buying those supplies or not? I am buying. Declan paid for the supplies with coins from his carefully hoarded savings, loading them into the wagon while Sarah kept watch. When they pulled away from the trading post, he felt her relax slightly beside him. He knew, she said quietly. He knew. But Caleb is a good man. He will not say anything. How can you be sure? Because I once pulled him out of a flash flood that would have drowned him. A man does not forget something like that. They traveled until dusk, then made camp in a sheltered spot beneath an overhang of rock. This time Declan risked a small fire, carefully shielded so the light would not be visible from a distance. Sarah proved herself handy at cooking, turning their basic supplies into a decent meal of beans and cornbread cooked in Declan's cast-iron skillet. Where did you learn to cook like this? He asked around a mouthful of food. From our ranch cook, Maria. After my mother died, she sort of adopted me, taught me how to cook, how to sew, how to do all the things my mother would have taught me. Sarah's eyes grew distant. I hope she got away when the fire started. I hope Jonas did not hurt her. Maybe we can find out. Once we get you safe, we can send someone to check on her. You really think we will make it to Salt Lake City? Declan met her gaze across the fire. I think we have to, so yes, I think we will. She smiled at him. A real smile this time, and Declan felt his heart do a strange flip in his chest. In the firelight, with her hair loose around her shoulders and her face clean from the washing she had done at a stream earlier, Sarah was beautiful. Not in the delicate, porcelain way of the women in fancy magazines, but in a real, vital way that made him want to keep looking at her. He forced himself to turn away, to focus on cleaning his rifle. This was not the time to be thinking such thoughts. Sarah was trusting him to keep her safe, not to moon over her like some lovesick boy. Besides, once they reached Salt Lake City and she got her legal troubles sorted out, She would go back to her ranch and her life, and he would go back to his. That was how it had to be. But as the night deepened and they sat by the fire, talking about everything and nothing, Declan could not quite convince himself that was how he wanted it to be. The days blurred together after that, falling into a rhythm. They traveled from dawn until dusk, following a zigzag route that took them through some of the most spectacular and inhospitable country Declan had ever seen. They crossed high desert plateaus where the sun beat down like a hammer, and descended into cool canyons where water trickled between rocks and cottonwood trees provided blessed shade. Sarah proved to be good company. She was smart and curious, asking questions about the land and the plants and the animals they encountered. Declan found himself showing off a bit, pointing out things his father had taught him years ago. Which plants were safe to eat, how to read tracks in the dust, how to find water when there seemed to be none. In turn, Sarah recited poetry to him as they traveled. She had memorized dozens of poems, and her voice as she spoke the words was like music. Declan had never cared much for poetry before, but hearing her recite Whitman's Song of Myself as they crossed a vast expanse of sagebrush, he began to understand what people saw in it. On the fourth day, they spotted riders in the distance. Declan could not tell if they were the same men from before or just travelers, but he was not taking chances. He drove the wagon into a narrow ravine and they waited, tense and silent, while the riders passed by half a mile away. "How do they keep finding us?" Sarah whispered. "We have been so careful. Your uncle probably has men searching all over the territory. Enough money can buy a lot of eyes. I never thought he would go this far. I knew he resented my father, but this—" She shook her head, fear and anger warring in her expression. "He is killing people. Those servants who died in the fire, they were innocent. And that man you shot, for all we know he is dead now." "That man was trying to kill you," Declan reminded her gently. "Sometimes in this life it comes down to kill or be killed. I do not like it any more than you do, but that is the way of things. I know. But I hate that people are dying because of me. They are dying because of your uncle's greed. That is on him, not you." After the riders had passed and they resumed their journey, Sarah was quieter than usual. Declan could see the weight of guilt sitting heavy on her shoulders, and he wished he knew how to lift it. But some burdens a person had to carry themselves. That night, as they made camp in a grove of juniper trees, Declan decided to ask the question that had been bothering him for days. "Sarah, when this is all over, when you get your ranch back, what are you going to do?" She looked up from the fire she was building. "Run it, I suppose. It is what my father wanted, what I want. Running a ranch is hard work, even with good hands. And after everything that has happened, some of those hands might not come back. Your uncle might have scared them off or worse. I know, but I cannot let my father's life work die just because things are difficult. That ranch is all I have left of him. Is it enough?" The question came out more intense than Declan had intended. "Is it enough to spend your life alone on that land, working yourself to the bone, with no one to share it with?" Sarah stared at him, her green eyes searching his face. "What are you really asking me, Declan?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. What was he asking? He hardly knew himself. All he knew was that the thought of parting ways with Sarah, of going back to his solitary existence in the mountains, felt wrong in a way he could not articulate. "Nothing," he said finally. "Never mind. I am just tired." But later, as he lay in his bedroll staring up at the stars, he knew that was a lie. He was falling for Sarah Bennett, falling hard and fast, and there was not a damn thing he could do about it. She was beautiful and brave and kind, and when she smiled at him, he felt like he could take on the whole world. But she was also a wealthy rancher's daughter with responsibilities, and a future that probably did not include a simple carpenter who lived in a cabin he had built with his own hands. The next morning they reached a small town called Cedar Ridge. It was not much, just a main street with a general store, a saloon, and a church, but it had a telegraph office. Declan had an idea. "Stay here," he told Sarah, parking the wagon behind the general store where it would not be immediately visible from the street. "I need to send a wire." "To who?" "An old friend. He is a federal marshal up in Wyoming. If anyone can help us figure out the legal side of this mess, it is him." Sarah grabbed his arm as he started to climb down from the wagon. "Declan, wait. If you send a telegram, it creates a record. My uncle might be able to track it. That is why I am going to send it from the next town over, mentally speaking. I will give a false location. And I will not mention you by name. Trust me, Sarah, I know what I am doing." She let him go, but he could see the worry in her eyes. He understood it. Every time they interacted with civilization, they risked exposure, but they could not do this alone forever. They needed allies and information. The telegraph operator, a thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles, looked at Declan with bored curiosity as he wrote out the message. It was carefully worded, mentioning nothing specific, but asking his friend Marshal Tom Hendricks if there were any outstanding warrants or legal proceedings involving a ranch in the Green River area. He signed it with a false name and paid the fee. "Response will come to general delivery," the operator said. "Check back in a day or two." Declan bought supplies at the general store, including a dress and some undergarments for Sarah. He had to guess at the sizes, and the store's selection was limited, but anything was better than the torn, dirty dress she had been wearing for days. When he returned to the wagon, he found Sarah pacing nervously, her hand on the small pistol he had given her 2 days ago. She relaxed when she saw him, and he handed over the wrapped package. "What is this?" "A dress and other things. You need clean clothes." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and Declan felt that now familiar tightness in his chest. "Hey, do not cry, it is just a dress." "It is not just a dress," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "It is kindness. It is someone caring about whether I have clean clothes to wear. Do you know how long it has been since anyone cared about something like that?" Unable to help himself, Declan reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. Her skin was soft under his calloused thumb, and she leaned into his touch like a cat seeking warmth. For a moment, they stood frozen, the package between them, the world narrowed down to just the two of them. Then a shout from the main street broke the spell. Declan pulled back, his heart hammering. "You should change. We need to keep moving." Sarah nodded, clutching the package to her chest, and disappeared into the back of the wagon. When she emerged 10 minutes later, Declan nearly swallowed his tongue. The dress was simple calico, blue with tiny white flowers, but on Sarah it looked like the finest silk gown. It fit her properly, showing off a figure that had been hidden beneath her dirty, torn clothing. She had braided her hair and pinned it up, and with her face clean and her eyes bright, she looked like a completely different woman. "Will it do?" she asked shyly. "It will do just fine," Declan managed, his voice rough. They left Cedar Ridge behind and continued their journey. The terrain was gradually changing as they moved north, the stark desert giving way to higher elevations with more vegetation. They were making good progress, but Declan estimated they still had at least a week of travel ahead of them, probably more. That night, they camped beside a small lake fed by a mountain spring. The water was so clear Declan could see straight to the bottom, and the setting sun turned its surface to molten gold. After they had eaten, Sarah surprised him by asking if she could bathe. "Of course," Declan said, trying not to think about Sarah and bathing in the same context. "I will go check on the horses. Take your time." He walked away, putting distance between himself and the lake, but he could hear the soft splash of water and Sarah's contented sigh as she sank into the cool depths. He busied himself with checking the horses' hooves and brushing their coats, anything to keep his mind occupied. When Sarah called out that she was finished, he returned to camp to find her sitting by the fire, her damp hair falling loose around her shoulders. She looked relaxed for the first time since he had met her, and she smiled at him with genuine warmth. That felt wonderful. "I did not realize how much I missed being clean. Glad you enjoyed it." Declan hesitated, then added, "There is something different about you tonight." "What do you mean? You look happy, or at least less terrified." Sarah considered this. "I think maybe I am starting to believe we might actually make it, that I might actually survive this. You have given me hope, Declan. I did not think I would ever feel hope again." The way she looked at him when she said it made Declan's breath catch. There was something in her eyes, something warm and tender and inviting. He forced himself to look away to stare into the fire instead. "You should get some sleep," he said gruffly. "Declan." Her hand touched his arm, light as a bird. "Look at me." He did, and what he saw in her face nearly undid him. "Sarah, do not what? Thank you. Tell you that you are the kindest, bravest man I have ever met. Tell you that when I look at you, I feel things I have never felt before. You are grateful. That is all this is. Once you are safe, once you have your life back, you will realize that. You think I do not know my own mind." There was a flash of temper in her eyes now. "I am not a child, Declan. I am a grown woman, and I know what I feel." "And what do you feel?" The question escaped before he could stop it. Sarah moved closer, so close he could smell the clean scent of her damp hair, could see the individual flecks of gold in her green eyes. "I feel like I want you to kiss me." Every sensible thought in Declan's head told him to pull away, to put distance between them, to remember that she was a vulnerable woman under his protection. But the look in her eyes, the invitation in her slightly parted lips, overwhelmed all of that. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, as if they were both afraid the moment would shatter. But then Sarah made a small sound in the back of her throat and pressed closer, her hands coming up to grip his shirt. The kiss deepened, became something hungry and desperate, all the tension and fear and longing of the past week pouring into it. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Declan rested his forehead against hers. "Sarah, this is not smart." "I do not care about smart. I care about this. About you. You barely know me. I know you risked your life for me. I know you have been nothing but kind and decent. I know that when I am with you, I feel safe for the first time since my father died. That is enough." Declan wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons why this was a bad idea. But with Sarah in his arms, her heart beating against his chest, the words would not come. Instead, he kissed her again, and this time there was no hesitation, no holding back. They lay down together on his bedroll, still kissing, hands exploring with increasing urgency. Sarah's fingers worked the buttons of his shirt while he traced the curve of her waist through the thin fabric of her dress. It would be so easy to let this continue, to take what they both clearly wanted. But Declan forced himself to stop. He pulled back, breathing hard, and looked down at Sarah's flushed face. "We need to slow down." "Why?" There was frustration in her voice, but also understanding. "Because you deserve better than this. Better than fumbling in the dark while running for your life. You deserve courting and romance and all the things a woman should have." "What if I just want you?" The simple honesty of it nearly broke him, but he shook his head, gently disentangling himself from her embrace. "Then you will still want me when this is over. And if you do, if you still feel this way when you are safe and free and have time to think clearly, then I will give you all of that and more. But not like this. Not now." Sarah sat up, adjusting her dress, her expression a mixture of disappointment and reluctant respect. "You are a frustrating man, Declan Morrison." "So I have been told," she laughed, the sound breaking the tension. "Fine. We will do this your way. But when this is over, when I am safe, I am going to hold you to that promise. I am counting on it." They settled down for the night, but this time their bedrolls were closer together, and as Declan drifted off to sleep, he could feel the warmth of Sarah beside him. It felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a long time. The next several days passed in a blur of travel and increasingly charged glances. The kiss had changed something between them, had brought feelings that had been building into the open. They talked more now, sharing deeper thoughts and fears and dreams. Sarah told him about her mother, about the lessons she had learned at her father's side, about her hopes for the ranch. Declan talked about his carpentry, about the satisfaction of creating something beautiful from raw wood, about the loneliness of his solitary life. On the 8th day after leaving the canyon, they reached a larger town called Preston's Crossing. It had a proper hotel, a stable, and even a small restaurant. Declan decided to risk staying the night in civilization. They both needed a real bed and a hot meal, and he needed to check if there had been a response to his telegram. He rented 2 rooms at the hotel, much to the proprietor's raised eyebrow at a man and woman traveling together but staying in separate rooms. Let them gossip, Declan thought. He knew what was proper, even if his heart wanted otherwise. Sarah looked like she might cry when she saw the room, small and sparse though it was. "A real bed," she breathed, "with sheets. Enjoy it. We will be back to sleeping on the ground tomorrow." The restaurant served beef stew and fresh bread, and they ate like starving people, savoring every bite. Afterward, Declan walked to the telegraph office and found, to his relief, that there was a message waiting. He read it twice, his expression growing grim. When he returned to the hotel, he found Sarah waiting in the lobby. He gestured for her to follow him outside where they could talk privately. "What is it?" she asked. "What did the telegram say?" "My friend Tom did some checking. There is no warrant for your arrest. Your uncle made that up. But he has filed a petition with the court claiming you are mentally unstable and need to be committed to an asylum for your own protection. If he can get you committed, he maintains control of the ranch." Sarah's face went white. "An asylum? He is going to have me declared insane." "He is trying. But Tom says the petition is full of holes. Your uncle cannot produce any medical evidence, any witnesses to unstable behavior. It is a weak case. The problem is, if he gets his hands on you before we can counter the petition, he could make evidence appear, forged documents, paid off doctors. It happens. So we need to get to Salt Lake City even faster. We need to get to Salt Lake City with proof of what your uncle has done. Tom suggested we document everything. Your testimony, evidence of the men hunting you, anything that shows your uncle's true intentions." "How do we do that?" Declan thought for a moment. "Tomorrow morning, we go to the local judge and you make a sworn statement. We get it notarized and sealed. It will not hold up in court on its own, but combined with everything else, it will help build a case." They did exactly that the next morning. The judge in Preston's Crossing, a stern old man named Judge Whitmore, listened to Sarah's story with increasing concern. When she finished, he sat back in his chair and shook his head. "Young lady, if what you are telling me is true, your uncle is guilty of attempted murder at minimum. I can write a letter to the authorities in Salt Lake City, recommend they investigate." "Would you?" Sarah asked, hope lighting her face. "I would, and I will date it and notarize your statement personally. This should carry some weight." He paused, studying Declan. "You are this young woman's protector." "I am." "Then I suggest you protect her well. Men who kill for money do not stop easily." They left Preston's Crossing that afternoon, carrying with them Sarah's sworn statement and Judge Whitmore's letter. It felt like a small victory, a step toward ending the nightmare. But as they traveled, Declan could not shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Sarah's uncle had to know by now that his men had not caught up with her. He would be desperate, and desperate men did foolish, dangerous things. That night, as they made camp in a stand of aspens whose leaves shimmered gold in the fading light, Sarah was quiet. Declan let her have her silence, understanding that she needed time to process everything. Finally, as they sat by the fire after dinner, she spoke. "Declan, if something happens to me, if my uncle wins, I want you to know something. Nothing is going to happen to you. But if it does, I want you to know that these past 2 weeks have been the best of my life. Even with the fear and the running and everything else. Being with you, talking to you, learning who you are, it has been worth all of it." Declan reached across the fire and took her hand. "Sarah, I am not going to let anything happen to you. You understand me. We are going to get to Salt Lake City, we are going to get this sorted out, and then you are going to claim your ranch and your life. And if you will have me, I am going to be part of that life." Her eyes widened. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that I am in love with you. I know it is fast. I know we have not known each other long, but I cannot imagine my life without you in it now. So yes, if you will have a simple carpenter who lives in the mountains and talks to his horses like they are people, I would be honored to court you properly. And maybe, if things go well, to marry you someday." Tears streamed down Sarah's face, but she was smiling, a smile so bright it rivaled the stars overhead. "Yes, yes to all of it. I love you too, Declan Morrison. I think I started falling for you the moment you told those men to come through that canyon and face you." Declan moved around the fire and pulled her into his arms. They kissed, sweet and tender, a promise of a future they would build together. When they pulled apart, Declan brushed a tear from her cheek. "We still have to get through this first. I know. But now I have something to fight for beyond just survival. I have you." They held each other as the fire burned down, not speaking, not needing to. Words were unnecessary when the silence said everything they needed to know. The landscape changed as they continued north, becoming more mountainous. The air grew cooler, especially at night, and Declan was glad for the extra blankets he had purchased back in Cedar Ridge. They were getting close to Salt Lake City now, perhaps 3 days away if they pushed hard. On what should have been a peaceful morning, everything went wrong. They had just broken camp and were loading the wagon when Declan heard the distinctive sound of a rifle being cocked. He froze, his hand instinctively moving toward his own weapon, but a voice stopped him. "I would not do that if I were you, Morrison." 4 men emerged from the trees surrounding their camp. Declan recognized 2 of them from the canyon encounter. The other 2 were new, and they all had rifles trained on him and Sarah. "Step away from the wagon, nice and slow," the lead man said. He was tall and thin with a scar running down one cheek. "We do not want to hurt you, we just want the girl." "Not happening," Declan said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "You do not have a choice. There are 4 of us and 1 of you. The math does not work in your favor." "Maybe not. But I guarantee I take at least 2 of you with me. You want to volunteer to be one of them." The man's expression hardened. "We can do this easy or hard. Easy, you step aside and let us take her. We will even let you keep the reward money as compensation for your trouble. Hard, we shoot you and take her anyway. Either way, she is coming with us." Sarah moved closer to Declan, her hand finding his. Her grip was tight, but she did not shake. "I will go with them," she said quietly. "I will not let them hurt you." "The hell you will. Declan, please. You have done enough. You have given me hope and love and a reason to keep fighting, but I will not let you die for me." "Sarah," He turned to look at her, ignoring the rifles trained on him. "I told you I would protect you, and I meant it. Trust me." Before she could respond, before the men could react, Declan grabbed Sarah and pushed her down behind the wagon. In the same motion, he drew his pistol and fired. One of the men went down, clutching his leg. The others scattered, taking cover and returning fire. Bullets slammed into the wagon, splintering wood. Declan heard the crash as one of his carefully crafted tables broke. He leaned around the wagon and fired again, catching another man in the shoulder. The odds were getting better, but they were still bad. "The horses," Sarah shouted over the gunfire. "Cut them loose." Declan understood immediately. If the men shot the horses, they would be stranded. He fired twice more to keep the men's heads down, then rushed to the front of the wagon. His knife sliced through the traces, and Buck and Sally, terrified by the noise, bolted into the trees. The man with the scar appeared suddenly from the left, his rifle aimed at Declan. There was no time to react, no time to move. Declan saw his finger tightening on the trigger and knew he was about to die. Then Sarah's pistol cracked and the man jerked backward, a red stain spreading across his chest. He fell, his rifle discharging harmlessly into the air. For a moment, everything froze. Sarah stood there, the smoking pistol in her hand, her face pale but determined. "Sarah," Declan breathed. The remaining two men must have decided the fight was not worth it, because they grabbed their wounded companions and retreated. Declan watched them go, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it. When he was sure they were really gone, he turned to Sarah. She was shaking now, the pistol dangling from her fingers. "I killed him," she whispered. "I killed that man." Declan gently took the gun from her and pulled her into his arms. "You saved my life. He was going to shoot me, and you saved my life." "I killed him," she repeated, her voice breaking. I know, and I am sorry you had to do that. But he would have killed me, and then he would have taken you to your uncle to be murdered. You did what you had to do." Sarah clung to him, sobbing into his chest. Declan held her, stroking her hair, murmuring words of comfort. He knew this moment would stay with her, knew she would carry the weight of what she had done. But he also knew she was strong enough to bear it. When her tears finally subsided, they assessed the damage. The wagon had taken several hits, and one of the wheels was cracked. They could repair it enough to travel, but it would be slow going. More worrying, they had no idea if those men would return with reinforcements. "We need to move, and we need to move fast," Declan said. "Can you help me patch this wheel?" Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "Tell me what to do." They worked together, using rope and a piece of canvas to reinforce the damaged wheel. It would not hold forever, but it should last long enough to get them to Salt Lake City. While they worked, Declan kept an eye on the surroundings, his rifle always within reach. Finding Buck and Sally took another hour. The horses had not gone far, but they were still spooked and had to be coaxed back. By the time they were hitched up again and ready to travel, the sun was high overhead. They had lost half a day, time they could not afford to lose. They pushed hard, stopping only when absolutely necessary. Sarah was quieter now, withdrawn into herself, and Declan ached for her. She had been forced to take a life, something no person should have to do. He wished he could take that burden from her, but all he could do was be there, steady and solid, reminding her that she was not alone. On the evening of the third day after the attack, they crested a hill and saw it. Salt Lake City sprawled below them, larger than any town Declan had ever seen. Buildings of brick and stone, wide streets, and in the distance, the great temple the Mormons were building. "We made it," Sarah breathed. "We actually made it. We made it," Declan agreed, relief washing over him. "Now we finish this." They found a hotel near the center of town, and this time Declan did not care what anyone thought. He rented one room with 2 beds because he was not letting Sarah out of his sight until this was over. Then he sent a telegram to his friend Tom, letting him know they had arrived. The response came back within an hour. Tom would arrive in 2 days and would bring a federal prosecutor with him. In the meantime, they should lie low and avoid drawing attention. Lying low was easier said than done. Sarah's uncle had resources, and Salt Lake City, while large, was still a place where information traveled fast. But they kept to their room as much as possible, venturing out only for meals and necessary supplies. Sarah's lawyer friend, a man named Marcus Chandler, met with them on the second day. He was in his 50s with gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He listened to Sarah's story, read Judge Whitmore's letter and her sworn statement, and then sat back in his chair. "This is good," he said. "Combined with the testimony of a federal marshal, this should be enough to get an injunction preventing your uncle from taking control of the ranch. We can also file charges of attempted murder." "How long will it take?" Sarah asked. "The legal process moves slowly. Weeks, maybe months. But with the evidence you have, I am confident we can win. And in the meantime, you stay safe. You stay away from your uncle and his men. Let the law handle this." Marshal Tom Hendricks arrived the next day, along with a federal prosecutor named James O'Donnell. They took statements from both Declan and Sarah, documenting everything that had happened. Tom was a big man with a weathered face and kind eyes, and Declan could see why he had become a marshal. He had an air of competence and authority that was instantly reassuring. "We will get him," Tom promised Sarah when they were done. "Men like your uncle think they are above the law, but they are not. We will make sure he pays for what he has done." The legal wheels began to turn. A warrant was issued for Jonas Bennett's arrest on charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit fraud. Federal marshals were dispatched to Green River to arrest him and to investigate the fire that had killed Sarah's servants. Sarah and Declan stayed in Salt Lake City, waiting for news. The days stretched into weeks, and slowly, Sarah began to relax. The constant fear that had haunted her started to fade, replaced by cautious hope. 1 month after their arrival, word came. Jonas Bennett had been arrested. Evidence had been found linking him not only to the attempts on Sarah's life, but to the suspicious death of her father. A bottle of rat poison had been discovered in his office, and a witness had come forward, a ranch hand who had seen Jonas putting something in Sarah's father's whiskey the night before he died. "It is over," Marcus Chandler told them, his face split by a wide smile. "The judge has ruled in your favor. The ranch is yours, Sarah, free and clear." Sarah broke down then, tears of relief and joy streaming down her face. Declan held her, his own eyes suspiciously damp. It was really over. She was safe. But even as they celebrated, Declan felt a gnawing worry. Sarah had her ranch back. She had her life back. Did she still want him in it? In the intensity of their flight, she had said she loved him. But now, in the calm light of day, with her future stretching before her, would she still feel the same? He need not have worried. That night, as they walked along the quiet streets of Salt Lake City, Sarah took his hand. "Come back with me," she said. "Come back to the ranch. Help me rebuild it, not as my protector but as my partner, as my husband if you will have me." Declan stopped walking, pulling her to face him. "Sarah, are you sure? You have your life back now. You could have any man you want. You do not need to settle for a carpenter who barely knows one end of a cow from the other." "I do not want any man. I want you. I want the man who risked his life to protect me, who treated me with respect and kindness when I had nothing. I want the man I fell in love with during the longest, hardest, most frightening journey of my life. I want you, Declan Morrison, if you want me. If I want you." Declan laughed, the sound full of wonder. "Sarah, I have wanted you since the day you climbed out of my wagon. I will go with you, I will marry you. I will spend every day of my life trying to deserve you. Then we are agreed." She stood on her toes and kissed him, there in the middle of the street, not caring who saw. "We start our life together." They were married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at the Salt Lake City courthouse. Marcus Chandler gave Sarah away, and Tom Hendricks stood as Declan's best man. It was simple and quick, nothing like the grand wedding Sarah probably could have had, but neither of them cared. What mattered was the promise they made to each other, to love and honor and cherish through whatever came. After the wedding, they returned to Green River and to Sarah's ranch. It was as beautiful as she had described, rolling grassland with a view of distant mountains. The house was a sturdy 2-story structure built of wood and stone, and Declan could see the care that had gone into its construction. Some of the ranch hands had returned after Jonas's arrest, and others were hired. With Sarah's knowledge and Declan's willingness to learn, they slowly brought the ranch back to life. Declan discovered he had a knack for ranching, his careful carpenter's hands equally skilled at mending fences and treating sick calves. Sarah bloomed like a flower after rain. The fear and trauma of her ordeal faded, replaced by confidence and joy. She was in her element here, managing the ranch with a firm but fair hand. The workers respected her, and Declan fell more in love with her every day, watching her command respect and handle challenges with grace. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the sun set over the land. Sarah would sometimes recite poetry, and Declan would whittle, creating small wooden figures that gradually populated the house. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable in each other's presence in a way that felt like coming home. 6 months after their wedding, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. Declan was overjoyed, though terrified at the prospect of fatherhood. But Sarah laughed at his fears and told him he would be a wonderful father, and because she believed it, he started to believe it too. Their son was born on a cool spring morning, with a midwife in attendance and Declan pacing anxiously outside the bedroom. When he finally heard the baby's cry, strong and healthy, he nearly collapsed with relief. The midwife brought the baby out, a red-faced, squalling bundle, and placed him in Declan's arms. "You have a son," she said, smiling. Declan looked down at the tiny person in his arms and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known possible. "Can I see Sarah?" "She is tired, but she is asking for you." Sarah lay propped against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face exhausted but radiant. She smiled when Declan entered with the baby. "Come meet your son." Declan sat carefully on the edge of the bed and laid the baby in Sarah's arms. She looked down at their child with such love that Declan felt tears prick his eyes. "What should we name him?" he asked. "I was thinking James, after my father, James Declan Morrison." "That is perfect." They sat together, the three of them, as the morning sun streamed through the windows. Declan thought back to that day when he had found Sarah hiding in his wagon, frightened and desperate. If someone had told him then that it would lead to this, to a wife he adored and a son he already loved more than life itself, he would have thought them crazy. But here they were, a family forged in danger and desperation, but bound together by love stronger than steel. Jonas Bennett was convicted of murder and attempted murder, and was hanged 6 months after James's birth. Sarah did not attend the execution. She said she wanted to focus on life, not death, on building something good rather than dwelling on the evil that had tried to destroy her. The ranch prospered under their joint management. Sarah handled the business side, while Declan oversaw the physical work and repairs. He built additions to the house as their family grew, adding rooms and making improvements. 2 years after James, They had a daughter they named Margaret, and 3 years after that, another son named Thomas. Declan continued his carpentry work, though now he built furniture for their home and their neighbors rather than selling to strangers. He became known throughout the territory for the quality of his work, and people would travel for miles to commission a piece. Sarah remained active in the ranch's operation even as their family grew. She hired a nanny to help with the children, a kind woman named Mrs. Patterson who adored them and whom they adored in return. Sarah had found Maria, her old cook, living in Green River, frightened but unharmed. Maria came to work at the ranch, bringing with her the warmth and skill that Sarah remembered. The years passed in a blur of work and love and the small joys of family life. They had their challenges, of course. There were harsh winters and droughts, cattle diseases and difficult calving seasons. But they faced it all together, Sarah's determination and Declan's steady strength complementing each other perfectly. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Declan surprised Sarah with a special gift. He had spent months working on it in secret, a large wooden chest carved with intricate designs. On the lid, he had carved a scene of a covered wagon in a canyon, a reminder of where their story had begun. Sarah cried when she saw it, running her fingers over the detailed carving. "It is beautiful. Open it," Declan urged. Inside, she found something even more precious. Declan had collected every moment of their life together, from the sworn statement she had made in Preston's crossing to the telegram from Tom Hendricks, from pressed flowers from their wedding to drawings the children had made. It was a record of their family, their journey, their love. "So we never forget where we came from," Declan said softly. "So the children, when they are older, can know the story of how their parents met." Sarah pulled him into a fierce embrace. "I love you. I loved you when you found me hiding in your wagon. I loved you when you protected me from those men, and I love you now more than ever. You are my hero, Declan Morrison. You always will be. And you are mine," he replied, kissing her. "You are my heart, Sarah. Everything good in my life started the day I found you." They stood together, surrounded by the life they had built, their children playing in the yard, the ranch stretching out around them. It had been a long, hard journey from that canyon in Utah to this moment, but every step had been worth it. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Sarah and Declan sat on their porch, hands entwined. They had survived danger and fear, had fought for their love and their future, and they had won. Their story had begun with a woman hiding in a wagon and a man brave enough to protect her. But it had become something far greater, a love story that would echo through generations, a testament to the truth that sometimes in the darkest moments we find the light that will guide us home. And they lived, truly and completely, happily ever after.